Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar, Portugal's Golden Visa, everything that you need to know. Now, my name is Jonathan. I'll be your host for today. I'll explain a little bit about who I am, who we are when we get started. But today I'm joined by my colleague Alex, who is here to help coordinate the session. So good morning, Alex.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alex. I'll be in the background while Jonathan walks us through today's presentation. I'm here to help if you have any technical issues or if you have any further questions. There should be a box provided, so if you need anything, just drop me a message in there. But yeah, that's all from me. So back to you, Jonathan. Let's get started.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. And you're quite right. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's session because we have quite a lot to get through today. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? We'll get started with the basic background. So introducing myself for those who don't know me, haven't met me yet, the company that I represent, that's Holborn Assets, and how we work. We'll then ask and answer some basic questions. Firstly, why? So why get a European passport and why Portugal is widely considered the best route to this in 2022. Then we'll ask how. How can we get into Portugal? And this is where we'll explore the variety of visa options that are available, not just the Golden Visa. And then we'll look to understand whether the Golden Visa is indeed right for you or whether you should be looking at another visa instead. And then finally, what? So what is the Golden Visa? What are the criteria to qualify? And what do the process and timelines actually look like in practice? We'll then look at some specific investment options, which are exclusive to my team, and then we'll discuss how to go about selecting the best investment for you. We'll then wrap up with some Q&A. So as Alex just mentioned, if you do have any questions, please do use the question box provided, and then we'll come to them at the end of the presentation. So all in all, the session should take between 45 minutes to an hour of your time today, and that's what lies in store. Okay, so basic background, a quick word on Holborn Assets, the company, to get started. So we're a leading financial planning and investment management firm. We position ourselves as the financial services group of choice, and our aim is to ensure that we put the right money in the right place at the right time for you. What does that actually mean? Well, essentially, that means working with you to ensure that we can meet your international financial goals. So securing a visa for you, getting you the right return on any investment. Away from Golden Visas, we also specialize in pensions, financial investments, property investments, specializing in clients in the offshore market. That is to say, our core market are expats, just like you either are already or are going to be in the future. Now, you may not have heard of us, but we are actually one of the largest financial advisories operating in the international space. We serve over 20,000 clients now across more than 100 different countries. And we manage just under $3 billion of client assets. As regards the Portuguese Golden Visa, we're extremely proud of our 100% success rate here, and we've helped roughly 1,000 people now get residency in Portugal through this channel. Naturally, as a client-centric business, we're regulated in our marks of operation, and that includes via the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, and also in the EU via our European head office, which is actually based in Cyprus. We're multi-award winners, as you can see on the screen, and we're also extremely proud of our 4.8 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot, which puts us firmly at the forefront of the financial services market. Anyway, that's core background, a little bit about me too. It's not all we're here to talk about, so I'll try to be quick. So my name's Jonathan. As you know, I'm a senior associate here at the company. I'm a fully qualified, licensed financial advisor to expats around the world. I've been an expat for the best part of a decade now. However, I qualified back in the UK. And I focus on investments within a regulated environment. I'm also a residency by investment specialist, and I've helped families all over the world to secure their European passports from Alaska to Beijing, from Oxford to Toronto, all places great and small. So if you'd like to contact me at any point, you can see my email address on the screen there. It'll also be on the slide at the end of today's session. Okay, so that's the boring bit out of the way. So then, why should you want a European passport? Well, the value here is the freedom that it gives you. Once you have your passport, you can live, retire, work, study, or open a business in any one of the European European Union member states. It doesn't matter which country it gives you the passport, Portugal or elsewhere. As long as it's an EU passport, you can go where you please. You can also use your new passport to travel visa-free to 185 countries around the world. So significant benefits there. Now let's answer the question, why Portugal? Which of course is why we're all here today. Now, this slide shows the most popular Golden Visa programs that are available through us here at Holborn Assets. There are more, but these are the major ones. However, there is one program that really stands out. It is the go-to for most non-Europeans looking to acquire an EU passport. That is Portugal. No surprises there. So why Portugal? Well, two reasons. Number one, it's one of the cheapest programs that exist. So qualifying investments in the real estate space start at just 280,000 euros. In comparison, Spain, which you can see on the right-hand side there, is almost double this at 500,000. Now, the second reason, and I would contend the main reason to choose the Golden Visa, is the physical stay requirement. Whereas other countries will require you to become a tax resident and live there full time if your aim is citizenship, Portugal does not. In fact, you only have to visit for an average of 1 week per year to qualify for full Portuguese citizenship and the EU passport, and that's after just 5 years. So if you do take the decision to buy property in Portugal that qualifies for the Golden Visa, you can carry on living wherever you are now, and after 5 years, you can obtain EU passports for the whole family. The only other condition is that you learn a basic level of Portuguese before getting your new passport to show your ties to Portugal. So the question for you then is, do you think that you could spend 1 week per year in Portugal for the next 5 years and also learn some basic Portuguese in that time? Guessing the answer is yes, otherwise I doubt that you'd be here on the session today. Okay, so that's why Portugal covered. Now let's look at the how. So there are 6 primary visa routes if you'd like to come to Portugal. Now this is where we get a little bit more complicated. We will skim over the surface a little bit. So if you would like to go into any further detail, either drop a question in the question box or we'll have a follow-up chat after the session. But for today's session, we're going to ignore the working visa. I'm assuming no one is on this session because they need a work permit. If this is you, then you should probably speak to your prospective employer about this rather than us. However, you can see the remaining 5 on the screen here. We've put the Golden Visa to one side, and the others are the Startup Visa. This is where you commit to starting a business and you have a business plan approved. The Family Reunification Visa, which is where you'll be married to a Portuguese resident or are their dependent. The Passive Income Visa, the D7, which requires just over 8,000 euros in annual passive income, such as a pension outside Portugal, for example. And like I say, that must be paid to you from outside Portugal. And also the new Digital Nomad Visa, which details are still emerging. This is a very, very recent development. But this requires you to earn more than 33,000 euros per year from a non-Portuguese source and is valid for 1 year. Like I say, details still emerging on that one. But what is the key distinction between these 4 that we have on the left-hand side and the Golden Visa on the right-hand side? Well, the Golden Visa is the only visa that gives you a clear route to citizenship without committing to living in Portugal full-time. During the 5-year qualification period. Now, you may already know, if not, then it's important that you know that the fees involved with the Golden Visa are higher than the other visa types, and you do need to tie up at least 280,000 euros for at least 5 years, but it is the only visa route that gives you citizenship and allows you to keep your current tax residency, i.e. outside Portugal, and it's the only one that gives you the flexibility to leave Portugal to live elsewhere during the 5 years of qualification for citizenship. And also, if done right, it can deliver a decent profit on the funds that you invest. And this is one area where my team and I, we feel we excel. So then, is the Golden Visa right for you? Well, if you want to move to Portugal right now, and you can commit to staying there for at least the next 5 years, then to be honest, the Golden Visa is probably not for you. You may as well look at a cheaper alternative where you don't need to tie up capital to qualify. The D7 is what most people choose here, so I would probably suggest that you take a look at this in the first instance. That said, if you can't commit to becoming a Portuguese tax resident, and that means spending 6 to 8 months here per year at least, then the Golden Visa is most likely the one for you. You might even have zero intention of ever moving to Portugal at all and just want the easiest and cheapest way to get a European passport and all the benefits that that brings, allowing you to go anywhere you want in Europe in the future. In which case, the Golden Visa is also for you. Again, if you have any questions on your personal situation, if any of this isn't clear, just pop a question in the box that's on your screen. Okay, a couple of case studies now. I think this might be interesting just to see some context. Well, firstly, Mr. and Mrs. C. These are clients of mine based in China. She is Chinese, he's an Indian national, and they came to me because they needed a plan B to give their daughter a brighter future outside of China. They wanted to give her access to European education, and they actually planned to move to Portugal when their work situation allows. However, he is a powerful CEO, deeply connected politically, so leaving China not an option for the next few years. And she has a similar problem as well. She's a director in a multinational, and she isn't ready to give up her work just yet. However, they do want to get the clock ticking on a second citizenship that gives them flexibility for the future. So we invested in the Portuguese Golden Visa together, so that they can provide that flexibility for their daughter's future and also give themselves the right to come and live in Portugal, the north, in Braga to be more specific, when they are ready to finally commit to moving over. So we actually gave them an investment that delivered a very interesting level of profit as well. So they are very happy with that particular arrangement. Another case study which might be of interest, Mr. and Mrs. G from Oxfordshire in the UK. Now, they actually came to me in a very, very dark place mentally. So they were quite upset. They were angry at the UK's decision to pursue Brexit. I know not everyone is from the UK on this call. It's probably a very small minority, but I'm sure you're aware of what happened there. Essentially, Brexit had wrecked their dream of moving to France and raising their newborn baby girl there. Now, fortunately, Mr. and Mrs. G, they love to travel. And so we pursued a golden visa together that has allowed them to split their time between Portugal and the other states in the Mediterranean, living on a boat, going where the tides take them. Their investment option also paid them a return of 25% upfront. So they are very, very happy with the solution that we found them together. They haven't yet got their passports, but they'll be heading straight to France as soon as they do. And Portugal is the conduit that allows them to do that. Now, remember, the Portuguese Golden Visa also gives you the unlimited right to travel through Europe while you're waiting for your passports. So if you'd like to see the continent while you wait for your citizenship, this is now very easy to do. Okay, so focusing in on the Portuguese Golden Visa scheme in that case. It was launched in 2012. It's proven extremely popular as it is the most accessible route to a European passport. You can include the whole family, but you must have a clean criminal record. You'll be interested to know that my team here has managed, I believe I said at the top of the show, 1,000 cases on behalf of various people looking to get residency in Portugal. So if you work with us, you are working with an expert and a tried and trusted market leader. There are several investment routes to take. Property is by far the most attractive. So this will be the focus of the rest of today's session, but before we do that, let's look at all the Golden Visa routes. The session is called Everything You Need to Know, so let's give you the full picture first. There are 5 main investment routes to take. The first is transferring at least 1 million euros in cash into a Portuguese bank account, which I personally wouldn't recommend with inflation, hovering around 9–10% at the moment. So there's lots more that we could and probably should be doing with that cash instead. Secondly, investing €500,000 into Portuguese funds. So essentially Portuguese businesses. That's another route to the Golden Visa. However, as with any funds, this can be volatile. This could be risky with no guarantee of your investment returns. Real estate is the third option here. That starts at just €280,000, as we've already discussed, and this is by far the most flexible and popular route, so we will focus on this, as I've already mentioned. There are also routes to the visa via a donation to culture and the arts in Portugal. That starts at €250,000. I say donation here because investing in the arts almost never generates a return. So you may see it labeled as an investment elsewhere, but for all intents and purposes, it is pretty much a donation in most cases. Or the final route is by creating at least 8 jobs in Portugal. It's actually 10 jobs across most of the country, but 8 jobs if you create them in a low density area. I've mentioned on a couple of occasions that real estate is the most attractive, at least in our opinion. So why is that the case? Simply because it offers a lot more flexibility versus the other routes. So with the right partner, with the right investment, you can have yields paid to you up front. You can have a relatively low investment amount versus the other investment routes that are available. A place to stay for free when you need to come to Portugal to meet the ongoing residency requirements, and a built-in exit strategy via a guaranteed buyback as well once your passports have been obtained. Okay, so diving a little deeper into real estate then. Now, you may be aware that since the start of 2022, there have been restrictions on where we can invest for a golden visa. The orange areas on the map that's on your screen here are typically the most desirable areas of Portugal. So we're talking about Lisbon, Porto, the Algarve, and as of this year, residential real estate in these areas no longer qualifies for the golden visa. The other areas of Portugal, so the areas you see on grey here on this map, are just nowhere near as attractive for investors. So it no longer makes sense for me, my team, to offer options in the residential real estate space in Portugal. So look at it this way: if you're buying a place to live, you're probably looking at a D7 visa anyway, as we discussed earlier. But if you're buying an investment, something that gets you that route into Portugal, it doesn't make much sense to actually look in these grey zones. So this could be a bit of a problem. However, commercial real estate in these orange areas still qualifies. Now that's important. Now, commercial real estate, that could be shops, offices, or crucially, hotels. Now, apartment hotels are the closest thing to residential real estate, and they make for some really attractive and flexible investment cases. So here at Holborn Assets, this is now our primary focus when it comes to the Portugal Golden Visa. The threshold for qualifying investments does vary, and that varies according to region and property type. As you can see, there are 4 types of qualifying property. So new builds, point 1, point 2, new builds in low density areas such as the Algarve, refurbishment projects on buildings that are at least 30 years old, and refurbishment projects in a low density area as well, such as the Algarve. Now you can see the minimum investment thresholds there on the screen, so no need to run through that, but we specialize in finding the best investments across all 4 of these categories and have exclusive options at each of these levels. As a general rule, the more you are able to invest, the greater the return on the investment. So I would urge you not to simply jump straight to point 4 and say, okay, 280,000, that is the one for me. I say this simply because there is a lot of demand at the 280,000 entry point, far outweighing supply. The supply is very, very low at this level. So the yields that are offered by developers are quite low here. So if you can invest a little bit more, you'll typically be rewarded for that because the demand gets a little bit lower, the supply gets a little bit higher. So I would urge you to please keep an open mind when selecting the right investment for you. Don't fixate on getting as close to the 280,000 minimum level as you can. Many people make this mistake and they actually miss out on far more profitable investments if they'd only invested just a few thousand more. We'll be running through some examples of good investments in just a few minutes, but that's a top tip to take forward. Okay, in terms of timeline and process. So this slide has been simplified a little bit to make it quite easy to understand, but we don't need to go into any more detail at this stage. So this is essentially the process for you to obtain your Golden Visa residence permit. The whole thing takes around 12 months, give or take, and as you can see, we do most of this from the comfort of your own home. This includes the kickoff, which is where we sign client agreements, establish your administrative presence in Portugal. That means getting your NIFs, so your tax numbers, and opening your bank account. Setting up a power of attorney as well with our lawyers so that they can purchase the property for you without you needing to come to Portugal. We'll then ask you to send the funds to your Portuguese bank account once that's all been set up and validated so that we can complete the property purchase. And once that's all done, we'll submit your Golden Visa application online to the authorities for approval. Now, this is a key milestone because once your application has been given pre-approval after 2 to 3 months that you can see on the screen there, you are in the system. And then it's just a matter of time before we have everything sorted and get your cards issued. To do this, we'll now invite you to physically come over to Portugal for the biometric appointment. This is the first and only time in the entire process that we actually need you to be physically present in Portugal. Once that's done, we'll take care of the rest. So once cards have been printed, issued, we'll have them sent out to your home address, and then congratulations, you are now a bona fide resident of Portugal. And in 5 years' time, all being well, you'll be eligible for dual nationality and that second passport, which is the main reason that most people go down this road in the first place. So what does that process to citizenship actually look like? Well, it's a 5-year roadmap and it's fairly simple. So once we've got the Golden Visa issued, the clock is ticking on those 5 years. The cards are issued, sent out, and a Golden Visa is valid for a 2-year period. After those 2 years, the Golden Visa needs to be renewed for a further 2 years, providing that the requirements have been met. That means you need to retain the asset that was originally held to grant you the Golden Visa. After another 2 years, so total 4 years at this point, we need to renew the Golden Visa again. And same criteria applies. You need to make sure that you meet the ongoing requirements. And then after a further year, that takes us to a total of 5 years, you are now eligible to begin applying for citizenship. So we get that ball rolling, and then EU passports will be coming to you in due course. So that's the process. Now, let's look at some investment options. If you have any further questions, of course, on process, Golden Visa, background, context, any of that, please do pop it in the question box there. What I'm about to present to you are, in my opinion, the leading options that are available in Portugal currently. And we're going to look at 3 specific use cases here today. So the first, we're going to look at what is the highest yield currently available in the market, at least to our knowledge, for those that want maximum return on their investment. Secondly, we'll also look at the best case at the €280,000 minimum entry point. And thirdly, we'll look at the best option for investors that are actually looking to spend large amounts of time in their Golden Visa property and potentially even live in it themselves. Of course, made a little bit complicated with the changes in regulations that we've just seen. But let's get started with what is my personal favorite, and this is the highest yielding investment that we have available. Now, this is the Royal Óbidos Spa and Golf Resort. This pays a whopping 35% gross upfront yield and comes with some very attractive conditions indeed. Like I said, this is my personal favorite. This is where I would put my money if it were me looking for the Golden Visa, and of course, money no object. But first, who is this for? This is for the investor that's looking for the best available investment, full stop. It is a little bit more expensive than some of the other options available, which I'll walk you through shortly, but the investor is very generously compensated for that extra outlay. It is a 5-star spa and golf hotel, which is particularly nice to have whenever you choose to come and stay there yourself. In terms of the location, very attractive. Just outside the historic town of Óbidos, which is a 45-minute drive just to the north of Lisbon. It's nestled in between a couple of other 5-star resorts and is just a few short minutes away from the Óbidos Lagoon and the renowned surfing hotspot of Nazaré. In terms of the complex itself, built in 2021, it's a fully completed operational hotel. That's very important. We'll come back to that. It is trading already. It's had a lot of guests. It's rated 8.7 out of 10 on booking.com now with over 1,700 reviews as of today, November 2022. As these apartments are new builds, they qualify for the Golden Visa at the 500,000 mark. However, my clients, our clients, can invest in this property from as little as €369,000. I'll explain how that works in just a second. With this particular option, you're investing in a full title deed. That means your own apartment, 100% owned, not fractional shares in a building or a business. That's important. This means that you have far greater control of your investment in the future, and you don't have to deal with any other shareholders at any point. It also protects you if anything happens to the hotel operator, as you would still own a very attractive piece of real estate that's 100% in your name that can easily be resold at any point in the future. Now, most Golden Visa investments in Portugal do not offer a full title deed, so this is a key differentiator for this particular property. The one-bedroom apartments here have a stunning panoramic sea view. You can just about see it here. The buildings that we're talking about are these here. The finish as well is in keeping with a five-star luxury hotel, so what you would expect from five-star resort. And you can see the golf course surrounding the hotel here. This is actually a PGA golf course that was designed by the late, great Seve Ballesteros. If any of you follow golf, I'm sure that rings a bell. And this golf course is renowned across Europe. And just to make this even sweeter, the owner of units here can actually stay in their unit for up to 6 weeks per year. This is well above what is usually available to a private Golden Visa investor. And this is a really beautiful development. So I actually really wish that we could be walking through this place directly today instead of me just showing you some photos, but there you go. Anyway, all of that is sort of secondary to this, which is the most important part, the financials. Yes, this is more expensive than the 280,000 minimum amount when we talk about Golden Visa investments. But our clients receive a huge 7% rental yield on this property per year, and this is paid upfront before you even complete the purchase as a lump sum. What does this actually mean in practice? Essentially, you need to invest 368,750 euros. I know I said 369 earlier, that was just rounding up. So it's 368,750 plus the purchase taxes in order to buy the property. Then after 5 years, the developer will buy you back for 500,000 euros. So 368,750 in, 500 out once you have your passports. The difference is the rental yield, which is paid to you before we complete the transaction. Assuming this is all, of course, assuming you take the buyback, which is entirely up to you at your discretion, and you have 4 years to decide whether you'd like to enforce it or not. If capital markets, if the real estate market explodes in Portugal and the value of the property is far above that 500,000 mark, you have the option of saying, you know what, I'd like to keep it or sell it myself or negotiate different terms. This is the most profitable Golden Visa investment available anywhere in Portugal to our knowledge, full stop. So if you want to get passports in Portugal and make a healthy profit at the same time, this is most likely the project that I would recommend that you look at in the first instance. It's also very, very well managed from a risk point of view. Why? Because the buildings are 100% finished, so there is no construction risk at all. All cash flows except the buyback are paid to you up front. And again, you have the peace of mind of having the full title deed in your name. It's an exceptional offer, it really is. Okay, a couple of photos just to show you the rest of the development. So here's the outside, a look at the inside finish, another angle here. Kitchen, again, what you'd expect from a five-star hotel. You can check it out on booking.com as well. So this is a snapshot of the booking page there. So I'd urge you, if you're interested in finding out a little bit more, do take a look on the booking.com page. So that's the first one. Might be for you, might not be for you. It's the nature of a webinar. Now we'll look at the second case, the Yellow Tulip Apart Hotel. Now this is the best investment case that I personally have seen at the 280,000 minimum entry point. It does offer a lower yield than the Obidos, but it's still interesting. Let's find out why. But first, who is it for? So this is for the Golden Visa that is trying to keep to a strict purchase budget of the absolute minimum for the Portuguese Golden Visa, the 280,000 euro mark. It means that you would need to tie up less capital, although of course it does mean you get a lower yield versus what you would get at the Obidos. In terms of location, very, very good. Nestled in between Lagos and Portimao in the Algarve, so a well-established tourism resort. The key facts, another completed building. So again, no construction risk, a key consideration when you're looking at a Golden Visa investment. But it does need to be a refurbishment project in order to qualify at the 280,000 euro minimum. Again, you are buying a full title deed, but this time to 2 studio apartments of 25 square meters each. The hotel is a 4-star resort in the Algarve, and it's rated a little bit lower at 6.8 out of 10 on booking.com. But truth be told, most of the negative feedback refers to the need to refurbish the building, which is, of course, being done as part of this process. And finally, of course, you can stay here again for free for up to 2 weeks per year, which is more than enough to satisfy the ongoing residency requirements in Portugal. And now back onto the most important part, the financials. This is a refurbishment project, as we know. So the first 2 years do not offer a rental yield, simply because this is when work is ongoing. However, the developer will pay the equivalent of a 3.3% yield upfront for years 3, 4, and 5, which gives a total of 20,000 euros net after tax. This is usually used to cover the purchase taxes for the property, so IMT, to minimize tax reporting for the buyer and just make it a more seamless process. The same buyback conditions as the Obidos are actually offered here. This is because it's actually with the same developer. This developer is called Excellium Capital. They're actually our preferred partner for Golden Visa projects for a number of reasons. If you'd like to know more about their relationship, just let me know in the question box or via email. I can explain in more detail. If you choose not to enforce the buyback, you can enter into a profit sharing agreement with the hotel operator for future years. This is set at 50% of hotel profits, which makes this a very interesting investment if your intention is to hold this for the longer term. Again, no construction risk, as we mentioned earlier, and front-loaded cash flows to make this an outstanding investment case. A great option if you're looking to tie up the lowest possible amount of capital. And again, that full title deed is a real differentiator. A few photos now. These are mock-ups, so this is what the complex is going to look like at the end of the renovation works, but you get a good flavor of what we're talking about here. So these are the outside spaces. This is what the inside will look like post-refurb. And this is the current booking.com page that we have here. So again, do check out the booking.com page. It is under a different name at the minute. It's under Yellow Alvor Garden. The rebrand is to reflect the renovation works that are going to be carried out. But you can find out a little bit more here. And thirdly, the last one that I'd like to do a deeper dive on today is Quinta de Fortevello. These are luxury villas just outside Lisbon, as I mentioned. This is the option for the investor that's looking to spend considerable time in their property. So why not repeat myself again? So this is investors looking for the flexibility to be able to live in their unit as long as they want without any restriction. So this is particularly aimed at high net worth investors who are maybe less concerned about the rental yield, but they want a flexible base near Lisbon where they can still come and use that property whenever they need it. In terms of location, so as we mentioned, just outside of Lisbon, just to the northeast, 15 minutes drive away from the city. It's also 16 minutes drive to the nearest beach, and there are no toll roads to contend with, which is of course different to South Lisbon and Cascais. It's a gated community surrounded by woodland, and it's just a stone's throw away from the hustle and bustle of Portugal's capital city. So as a real estate investment, very, very well placed. The facts then. So we're talking about 3 to 4 bedroom luxury villas. The developer has actually just signed a major licensing agreement with a very large global hotel brand. I can't actually say the name just yet, but it's one of the big ones, which shows you the standard that we're talking about here. Now, this complex is about 80% complete at the moment. And again, we're talking about acquiring a full title deed to your own villa. Prices are between 512,000 euros and 690,000 euros. That depends on the villa in question. Although these prices are set to rise between 10 to 15% when the hotel partnership is formally announced. So that's one to watch out for. The villas are all high spec, offering concierge, security, porter service, private pool or hot tub, depending on the unit, community tennis and paddle courts. Paddle, my new favorite sport. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a wonderful game. A luxury clubhouse as well, which is great for socializing, and full underground storage for all of your belongings whenever the unit is being rented out. There are also several yield options to choose from, making this one of the most flexible investment options on the market. And you know what's coming next? The financials once again. So what are those three yield options? The first is a guaranteed yield. This is where you can elect for a fixed yield of between 3 to 6 gross per year. This would let you stay in the unit for up to 1 week per year. The second option, I put this in bold because I feel this is probably the most appropriate for most investors into this project. This is the variable yield. This offers a 50% profit share with management, and it gives you total control over how long you'd like to stay in the unit each year. And then of course, the longer you stay, the lower the profit pot at the end of the year, and the lower the yield. But this ultimately gives you flexibility to stay there as long as you want, and then still see a return on that investment. There's also a zero yield option for those who would like to stay in their unit permanently. Not sure anyone on this session would look at that, mainly because, as we mentioned, if you're looking to live permanently in Portugal full time, you may wish to consider another visa, such as the D7. Now, this development does carry the option of a buyback as well, but you must elect for this on day one. The other two we've just seen, you have up to 4 years to decide. This one you must stipulate when you purchase the property. And most people, truth be told, do not take this option. That's simply because the capital appreciation potential for this development is very high, with its strategic location next to Lisbon, and of course the hotel partnership coming on board. Now, this is a truly unique option for those actually looking to live for some time in a property near Lisbon that still qualifies under the Golden Visa rules for 2022. Remember, Lisbon residential property no longer qualifies, but this development does, which really sets it apart. As you can see from the images on the screen here, we're talking about modern villas with great amenities, very, very comfortable home for those looking to spend a significant amount of time in Portugal on a golden visa and still see a return on their investment when they're not in the country. And those are the top three investment options that I feel would suit 99% of golden visa investors. But of course, the rest of my team here, we work with a large number of investments in Portugal that qualify for the golden visa. These are just my three top choices. So let me also show you a few alternatives for some further context, which may be of interest to you. So, like I mentioned, we do have several other opportunities currently available on the Golden Visa. The three we've discussed already are, in my opinion, standouts. However, to give you a flavor of what else is out there, here are three alternatives that we offer. The first, Faro Riverside. This is a recently announced refurbishment project in an attractive central location in Faro at the 280,000 minimum entry point. In terms of the financials, the developer will pay all taxes, but you are getting fractional shares in the project rather than a full title deed. And the buyback is mandatory, not optional, with no option for profit sharing, which is unlike what we saw with the Yellow Tulip, which competes at the 280,000 level. So you can see why I would recommend the Yellow Tulip personally if you're looking at 280,000. However, this is a very, very good, this is predicted to be a very, very popular as well second option at this price point. Next is the Lisbon Skyview Hotel. Now, this is actually the same developer as the Faro Riverside, and it is another refurbishment project, but available at the slightly higher 350,000 mark due to its location in Lisbon. Now, to compensate you as an investor for this higher purchase price, the developer will pay you a 3% annual yield after this development is completed. That's scheduled for the end of 2024. Again, you are buying fractional shares in the building and not a full title deed to the apartment, and the buyback is once again mandatory, I'm afraid. And then finally, TNAP, apartments in Porto. These are city centre apartments offering a guaranteed 3.5% gross annual yield, which really isn't bad considering the low 350,000 asking price. However, there is no buyback available on this deal, so you'd need to take on the risk and the inconvenience potentially of selling it yourself once you have the passports, if your intention is not to hold this for the long term. If you do have this budget available, I personally prefer looking at the Royal Obidos, just because the allure of that 7% return is quite enticing. But if you're looking for an investment play in city centre Porto, this is a very, very interesting option there as well. There are further investments, of course, that we offer. All investments that we work with are, of course, subject to availability, a very, very limited supply in each project, but further information is available on request. And that's about it, guys. So if you'd like to run through any of the points that we've discussed together today, or if you'd like us to look at your own Golden Visa application, do feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to have a personal meeting with anyone that's here on today's session. So just drop me a line. My email is jonathan.ralph@holbornassets.com, and we'll get that set up. You can also email me if you have any questions at all that you're not comfortable asking in a public forum such as this. So speaking of questions, Alex, what questions have we had in from the guys while I was rambling on? I saw a few come in.
Yeah, we've had a few. So the first one is, for the Obidos, is the upfront paid per year?
So it's 7% per year, which is paid upfront for that period of 5 years. So you're getting 35% upfront. Gross, that's 175,000 euros. So for a 500,000 euro investment, you're getting 175,000 euros gross upfront. The issue is that Portugal levies a withholding tax of 25% on those rental payments. So net of that tax, it's 131,250. That is your rental yield to cover the 5 years. And like I say, that is 35%, 7% times the 5 years upfront.
Brilliant. Great. Okay. There's another one as well. The rules have changed at the start of this year. What are the chances they will change again next year?
Okay, good question. What are the chances that the rules will change next year? The thing is, when it comes to Golden Visa legislation, and this isn't just the case with Portugal, but pretty much globally, when there are changes to a Golden Visa landscape, the changes tend to happen quite quickly. It tends to be quite a sudden change. Now, we haven't heard of any upcoming changes for next year. If any changes do come in, they are 99% likely to come in as of the 1st of January to coincide with the calendar year. And like I say, we haven't heard of any changes in the vein of what we had at the start of this year coming through for next year. But like I say, anything can change. That's not something that we can take for granted. So watch this space. But for now, we're working on the presumption no.
No worries at all. Great. So the next one is, does a married couple need to make separate investments, or do we just buy the one property between us?
Okay, good question. So no, if you are a married couple, it is just one investment. So one investment potentially of 280,000 euros for the both of you, and then including dependent children or dependent parents on that one sole investment. So just one investment. It is an investment of 280,000 for every single applicant. That would be prohibitive. So no, don't worry about that.
Yep. All right. So next one. I want my son to get the passport too, but he's 23 years old. Can he come on my Golden Visa?
Okay, that really depends on whether the son is dependent on you or not. There's a few things that we would need to look at there. But if a child is over the age of 21, we still need to prove dependency on you. There's a few ways that we do that, mostly geared at demonstrating that they're still in full-time education. There are a few ways that we could look at that. I would suggest actually the person that asked that question reach out and we run through their own personal circumstances in a little bit more detail. And then, if needed, we can get the lawyers on the call too and just explain how, why, if we can make that happen. But usually, as long as the children are under 26, there are precedents that is possible.
Yeah, great. Another one here. Is there any time limit for any of these investment options?
Availability, really, and rules. So, as I mentioned, each development is subject to its own availability. Once they're gone, they're gone. And the good Golden Visa investments do tend to be popular, and so they tend to go fairly quickly. Of course, there are certain developments that are bigger than others, and therefore more capacity means less urgency. But once they're gone, they're gone. And then the other risk is any changes in the rules. If we do see any changes in the rules that no longer allow us to do apartments in hotels, for example, which, let's be honest, is a bit of a workaround to get clients a Golden Visa, that is very close to residential property without being residential property. If there are any changes to those rules, then that might be a risk too. But those are the two main considerations you need to watch out for.
Yeah, no worries at all. Great. So next one is, at what stage in the process would I need to have the funds ready to send to Portugal?
Okay, so that, if you remember back to that slide where we talked about the process, you need to have the funds ready to go to Portugal when we're ready to move to deeds. And that's after we've got your tax identification numbers set up, after we've got your bank account set up. So typically between 1 to 2 months. So we'd get started, and then 1 to 2 months down the line, that's when you'd need to have the funds ready to move over.
Yep, great. Just last one now as well. My parents are in their 70s. I'd like to include them on my Golden Visa and also my sister. Is that possible?
Okay. Parents, yes. If they're over the age of 65, then they're automatically classed as dependents and you don't need to prove it. If they were under 65 but over 55, you would need to prove dependency, but over 65, it's an automatic yes. Sister, however, unless you are her legal guardian, I'm afraid you can't bring siblings. It would need to be dependent children or dependent parents. So parents, yes. Sister, I'm afraid not.
Yep, great. Yeah, and that's all for the questions so far.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that's great. If there are any other questions that do come in, then we'll come back to you via email. As I say, we've got my email address on the screen there, so do feel free to reach out, guys. If there's anything else that you'd like to run through, and like I say, very happy to jump on a personal call with each and every one of you on here today. And failing that, I think we can wrap up for today. So thank you very much for joining us on today's session. A recording will be made available of this session and sent out to you as well. So if you want to rewatch, you can do that. But nothing else further other than to wish you all a very, very pleasant day. I hope you've enjoyed the session, found it productive. And I hope to meet some of you soon. Right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care.
See you later.